sector has struggled to provide the on-the-job training necessary, and we cannot depend solely on our high schools, community colleges, and universities to train and sustain a modern competitive workforce. That's why we must bring both industry, labor, and education to the table and ensure that we're working hand in glove to meet the workforce demands of tomorrow. Mr. Clark, question for you. In your testimony, you talk about the value of registered apprenticeship. I have a bill called the Hard Hat Act that would require 20% of workers on a federally funded construction project to complete a registered apprenticeship program. You spoke about the idea of utilizing this model for maintenance and other skilled labor positions in the industry. Can you elaborate on your comments as to why it makes sense to have these high standard joint labor management apprenticeship programs for all aspects within the transit industry, and what are some pre-apprenticeship options that can be used to help address workforce pipeline challenges?
Thank you. You've answered much of your own question, but I welcome the opportunity.
As long as it looks good on camera.
It does. The apprenticeship really does involve, the technical learning needs to be there. You don't go out and deal with high voltage electricity without learning something in the classroom about principles of electricity. But to work well in those blue-collar settings, and indeed in most settings, people learn most of what they do by doing it, not by passively absorbing information. An apprenticeship takes that principle of learning and implements it fully. And that works very well. I think your bill is a great idea. We also have some experience starting these apprenticeship programs in some places in transit, and the results are phenomenal. People pick up the skills, and as I indicated in my testimony, if you get to the highest end of this, and I think Southeastern Pennsylvania Transit Authority in Pennsylvania and Philadelphia has reached some of this at times, where you get engineers and frontline workers taking on a problem, seeing something and saying, hey, we're paying a lot of money to get this particular element from a vendor. We can do that in-house if we rejigger the systems a little bit. There are really a lot of benefits here, including the workforce becoming more engaged, people enjoying their jobs more, but also just delivering better, more efficient service.
Thank you. Secretary Mylar, in your testimony, you talk about the need for Congress to support initiatives that create new opportunities for high school and college students, including internships in STEAM fields, to ensure an adequate workforce pipeline. I have a bill that looks at dual enrollment programs with a focus on private sector buy-in. How can we better prepare the high school junior and senior that is about to graduate for a family-supporting career in the transportation industry? And what are ways that state departments of transportation are engaging the next generation of workers, and what can we learn from them?
That's a great question, Congressman. We're doing a lot in Washington State. We could do more if we were resourced to do more. We're reaching out in high schools and middle schools across the state to engage those children in thinking of the construction trades as a way forward. As we talked about earlier today, a lot of folks figure that four-year degree is the way to go. I have a friend in the development industry that said, what I tell kids is go to community college, get some skills, go out, do an apprenticeship, learn a trade. By the time your friends graduate from college, you'll be ready to hire them as employees. So we require today 15% of our labor hours worked on our contracts be done by apprentices. We're at 18.6% as an agency, and 44% of those apprentice hours are worked by women and people of color. Providing a pipeline to that apprenticeship program through pre-apprenticeship support and on-the-job training is the place where we need help. We have a state-funded program. It started 2 biennia ago at $750,000. It's up to $3 million that we're spending on things like daycare and lunch money and equipment, tools, so that young men and women can get into these apprenticeship programs. We're not doing that work. We're getting that money out to labor, to faith-based groups, to community groups, to bring people from the community in. Another thing I'm doing to wrap this up is working with the Secretary of Corrections in Washington State in the prison population to bring that same set of pre-apprenticeship skills together so that people can leave the prison population when they come back into their communities. They come back into the community with a full-time job at the Washington State DOT.
Thank you to the panel. Thank you, Madam Chair.